We all know that feeling, the pivotal moment when we sense an inner pull to make a mighty decision that could radically upgrade our lives. It's an impulse that bubbles up from the depths, nudging us to start breaking free from the limited patterns and programming that have kept us looping in place. Yet, as soon as that expansive vision arises and we catch a glimpse of the possibility, something tenses up within us. It's a visceral contraction, usually centered in the solar plexus or base of the throat. It's as if our entire body instinctively applies the brakes the moment that mighty decision is about to launch. This is the phenomenon we're exploring today, that intense physiological backlash that seems determined to abort any new trajectories before they can even take flight. For many, this block becomes impenetrable. They get deterred at the gates of evolution, continually aborting their growth because of that poisonous anxiety lodged in the body. So let's get radically honest about what's really happening in that deeply uncomfortable moment. You see, the reason that physiological constriction arises with such vigilant intensity is because it's being driven by primal self-preservation coding lodged in the ancient areas of our brain and nervous system. When we consciously decide to start exploring new ways of thinking, new ways of being that could disrupt our default homeostasis, our subconscious minds quite literally interpret that as a survival-level threat. Because from the limited vantage point of our habituated patterns, any deviation from the known spells systemic death and annihilation. That may sound dramatic, but this is the root code our unconscious patterning was birthed from, the singular prime directive of ensuring our continuity. So when we seek to transform out of our conditioned programming by making new, more productive decisions, our psyche's fear centers go into extreme tilt, doing everything in their power to resist the perceived termination. This is why that knot of resistance arises so viscerally. Our bodies and minds are feverishly trying to keep us on the tightrope of the known, even if the known is keeping us in a conscripted cage of suffering and unlived potential. Because at least the unconscious backdrops were familiar territory. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Quite often when we tune into the source of this panicked opposition within us, we realize it's not actually emanating from our true enlightened self. No, what we're experiencing is really just the scared inner child, the traumatized aspects of our psyche that have been molded into rigid patterns of victimhood, powerlessness, and fear over decades of conditioning. You see, our habituated coping mechanisms like victimhood, anger, numbness, procrastination, and so many more, these have essentially been mistaken for our authentic identity over time. Somewhere along the way, we literally became fused with these self-sabotaging patterns, taking them on as what we call me in all its forms: I, me, myself, mine. So of course, when we seek to make sweeping changes by deciding on a new vision, our unconscious mind panics. This is killing me. This is hurting me. This doesn't feel right to me. It is terrified of any growth that would render those limiting personas obsolete, misinterpreting their death as our death. Can you feel the twisted poetry in that? Our greatest fears are never about our enlightened self disappearing. That is ultimately indestructible. No, our biggest terror is that the fragmented, diminished personas we've been wearing as masks will cease to exist as we step into our mightiest decisions. This is precisely why, at that pivotal crossroads of evolution, the conscious mind must make an emphatic choice on who we choose to listen to. Do we heed the panicked alarms of our fear-based patterning, or do we realign our awareness with the quieter yet unshakable wisdom of our highest self that understands our patterns must fall away for our grandest becoming? Because here's the thing, those habituated personas we've adopted, as deeply entrenched as they can feel, are not actually who we are at our core. They were merely shoreline characters created to survive an incredibly tumultuous childhood ocean, but we've long since outgrown their utility. So when we make the mighty decision to step into our highest capacities, part of the work is consciously separating from those limiting sub-personalities that have been masquerading as our lifelong identities. The me that feels anxious, unworthy, scared, that's just the voice of the programmed automaton doing its job, nothing more. Your true self already understands this whole act as nothing more than thinly veiled cosmic theater. It was always playing the role of the human brilliantly and purposefully, but knows those habituated masks are not reality. From its grounded vantage point, our patterns dissolving is something to celebrate, not evade in fear. So when we make those mighty decisions, it's our chance to step into that higher awareness, stop over-identifying with the panicked inner characters, and start living as that which we already are at our core, the luminous, ever-expanding, limitlessly creative individualization of the one life. The habituated resistance will always feel the upheaval of transformation as an existential threat, because to our unconscious patterning, any path that doesn't recreate our prisons is experienced as a profound dismantling. But to our divine essence, to who we truly are, this is the very opening into sovereignty that was coded into our blueprints. Those visceral knots of resistance and bouts of panic we feel are actually cause for celebration, as they herald the reckoning between two diametrically opposed inner realms. On one side, the self-limiting nightmares conjured by our traumatized psyches and conditioning. On the other side, the brilliance and illumination of our true eternal essence, our light body, if you will, striving to be unleashed from its confines. The key is to not misinterpret those flashpoints as a reason to course correct or play it safe. No, they are the mighty bells announcing the opportunity for embracing the growing pains that confirm you're passing the thresholds of your evolution. Breathe fully through them, feel them with radical acceptance, and keep inching your lifeboat into uncharted waters. Because the most awe-inspiring moments always seem to arise after we faced those intensity checkpoints that nearly made us retreat back to the shallows. That resistance is simply the outermost spectral ring of our limiting beliefs, the final horizon line of unconsciousness before the forbidden provinces of limitless possibility. So embrace the creative tension of making mighty decisions. Use it as a reminder to compassionately unhook your allegiance from the panicked identities that know not what they're clinging to, and realign with your highest vectoring self that rejoices in infinite becoming. Then watch in amazement as the universe rushes in to meet your upgraded game face with streams of synchronicity. For you are signaling to the infinite that you're finally willing to claim your full navigational capacities as the pilot of your destiny, not merely the prisoner of your patterns. Now, once we finally jump to make the mighty decision to truly evolve beyond our limiting patterns, everything in our reality that was constructed upon that outdated foundation will inevitably start quaking and potentially dismantling itself. For when we upgrade our core operating system by choosing a new vision and way of being, we can no longer expect the external life we'd assembled, the relationships, jobs, environments, to remain perfectly intact and harmonized. After all, these were reflections meticulously arranged to mirror back the self-fulfilling loops of our habituated programming. The career, the town we bought our first house in, the romantic partnerships, these were all built upon the particular frequencies we had been conducting ourselves through. So when we abruptly start transmitting new energetic pulsations into the field by leaving our confining patterns behind, the external realities that were once synced to our old baseline will naturally begin displaying dissonance and misalignment. Like sand repelled by the upward thrusts of new tectonic plates, the structures supported by our former patterns will start crumbling and shifting. And while terms like energetic pulsations and field may sound like New Age fluff to some, they are in fact very real representations of the biochemical and hormonal shifts now animating our cells and neurology in tangible ways. What we're exploring here is not mere metaphysical conjecture, but the psychosomatic mechanics of how our outer experiences realign to match our newly coherent inner states of being. It's akin to repainting the rooms of a house. The spaces feel dramatically different, more vibrant and resonant, once those new decorative frequencies harmonize the environment to our improved inner condition. This is where things get intensely uncomfortable and uncertain for the part of us still identifying with those patterns. Because our small, fear-based self perceives any destabilization of the familiar as a profound existential crisis, a threat to its very survival and continuity. Of course, the reasoning goes, if we allow this conscious transition beyond our habits, then everything we'd worked so hard to construct, our lives, our possessions, our relationships, it will all collapse into rubble. Our comfort zones and temporal illusions of security will be decimated in one fell swoop. Yet from the enlightened view of our highest self, not some fuzzy New Age concept, but simply our most expanded state of awareness anchored in truth and our ultimate potentials, this is not actually a crisis, but the natural byproduct of outgrowing any falsely limited realms. When integrated truth encounters that which was built upon fragmented illusions, the domain of shadow must yield as the radiant light keeps expanding. You see, our existences rooted in fear, lack, and powerlessness were never permanent realities to begin with, but temporary scaffolding erected around the infinite divine essence we are. A lotus inevitably outgrows and discards the mud from which it sprouted. Mature oak trees shed their constricting seed pod shells. So rather than dreading the dismantling of the lives we've outgrown, this is our invitation to welcome the sacred reinitiation into ever-increasing resonance with our eternal authenticity. Any circumstances misaligned with that are removed from our sphere, with the graciousness of a maestro conductor ushering off expired movements before brilliant new refrains can unfold. For far too long, we've been trapped in a trance of over-identifying with our limiting patterns and environments, affixing our sense of self-worth and identity to circumstances destined to decay. But our spirit was never meant to be confined to those soul-sculpting incubators forever. When we instead set the compass of our life force to our highest ideals, our most expansive visions of truth and creative actualization, the false existences automatically deprioritize. We come to recognize that anything incongruent with our ultimate aims was always a beautiful yet temporary stepping stone along the path, not the final destination. So when the upheaval arrives and the patterns panic that everything is crumbling, have the spiritual fortitude and vision to celebrate that precious reset as the ultimate remedy for true rebirth. Like a mythical phoenix, only once we've experienced everything combusting in metaphorical flames can our most spectacular regenerations ignite. Because beneath the loss, the chaos, the disruption of our patterns' safe zones, something far more significant is being renewed, our unshakable faith in the perfect divine timing and order of our soul's journey. A trust that transcends the small self's perceptions of things falling apart. We come to realize that all those rickety structures were built on nothing more than mental astigmatisms, distorted hallucinations of lack and unworthiness conjured by fear. They were prisons disguised as home, whose dissolution merely cracks the shell to unleash our spirits into infinite new playgrounds of creative exploration. So resolve yourselves, mighty creators, to relish each ecological shift on your heroic path with gratitude. For you are evolving beyond flat, two-dimensional existences confined by lack into full-spectrum, multidimensional lives emblazoned in the kaleidoscopic colors and lucid dreams of what your most realized self craves. Yes, the familiar patterns will scream in resistance, but only because anything whose roots don't drink from eternal source withers before the coming brilliance. Let it fall away without attachment, for you are the source itself, churning ever-new artistry and adventure into being. There is nothing to seek or chase while on this path, only the shedding of illusions to divinely reveal more of your true, unbounded, gloriously limitless self here in this reality. This is the path of the peaceful warrior who makes uncertainty their secret power by rooting in the changeless truth at their core. So, be unwavering in walking the path of your highest decisions, uncompromising in manifesting the grandest visions of your soul. Any cost in the realm of matter is a precious price to pay for unveiling more coherence with your ultimate essence. For you were born to experience all domains of life progressively yielding to that one supreme light blazing within you. Consider the patterns left behind as the beautiful colors released after each once brilliant sunset, fleeting yet integral for unveiling the infinite majesty awaiting your arrival. From this day forward, you now walk the earth as a divine revelation of courage, a living ambassador sending ripples of inspiration into the field, reminding all others that it is possible to leave the shackles of fear behind and finally take reign of our supreme creatorship alongside the infinite intelligence that enlivens all.